This week we're finishing Bride by Ali Hazelwood, otherwise known as Knotty Things.
Hi readers, I'm Jordan.
And I'm Katie.
And welcome to Not Another Heroine Season 2, the podcast where we break down the best and worst fictional heroines of any genre. Because that's what we do now.
Want to see what's next on our TBR list? Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Instagram for a sneak peek at upcoming content or to help us pick our next book.
We're going to close out Bride this week, but man, are we going to talk about some uncomfortable stuff.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
I'm going to put on my clinical glasses and just get through it, and it's going to be fine. I am telling myself that.
I don't think it's going to be fine, Katie.
These are what do people manifestations or intentions where you say them out loud? You're like, this is going to happen. It's going to be a lot of awkward
So we're roughly at the 65%-ish mark, I would say, of the book. And if you read any romance novels, you know that this is where things start really kicking off in the bedroom department.
Yep.
And this is kind of welcome to the playground.
Yeah, that it is.
So they're back at home after the dinner thing. Things are still kind of there's chemistry. We're a big, happy family now. Misery is in the kitchen, chowing down on some peanut butter, having a good conversation with Lo.
Girl, are you really gonna bypass the part where it's on her nose or something?
Oh, I forgot
and
about
he
that
has a fucking fanatical moment of you have peanut butter on you, and she's like, what? Where?
I forgot about it. I'll be honest.
He had a moment.
Yeah. He's hyper focused on her because she's just with her spoon and her peanut butter, just
hanging out,
having a good time.
down.
I've been there, girl.
Just alone in the dark, don't look at me. But then she's like, I don't feel so good. And he's like, Misery, are you okay?
And then
she's
she keels over and almost dies.
Yeah.
And then the next few days are a bit of a blur. You kind of get vague impressions of what's happening.
And they're all featuring overprotective man.
If that is your thing, this is the scene for you.
It was my thing. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too. Well, so they summon a doctor. She was poisoned, but they're not sure if she was targeted or if Anna was targeted because it's only Misery and Anna. She has the same taste as an 8-year-old child. Eat peanut butter in the house.
And Misery is eating is not a thing that vampires do. So this was 100% for Anna because this is my guilty, gross thing I do by myself.
Who would think that? Yeah. So
and just the depth of emotion that they got a vampire doctor just to make sure that she was okay.
So cute. And in the meantime, they send Anna away. They're it's no longer safe for her. So Anna and Cohen and I think Juno go off to a mystery location to protect Anna while Misery recovers. And so Misery wakes up after several days and she opens her bedroom door, looks around, and then right in front of her door, she sees a gigantic white wolf just hanging out. And she's like, Lo? Is that you?
That it is.
Do you want to come inside? And he gets up and shakes himself off and she calls him, she says, you majestic fluff ball.
That's what I was imagining, those polar bear dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably a little bit more scary looking, but polar bear dog.
And it's easier for her to invite him to come sleep with her in wolf form. So she's like, do you want to come into my closet? And he trots into the closet, still in wolf form.
So cute.
Curls up next to her and they fall asleep. And it was so cute.
And then it gets spicy.
Yeah. There's
Thai hot spicy.
There's a bath scene.
Yeah.
So Misery needs to bathe because she thinks she smells bad.
Yep.
Still.
But also with the addition of 5 days in a deathbed sweating through when she doesn't even have sweat glands. Girl is a little nasty.
So she's in the bathtub, there's foamy bubbles everywhere. Lo knocks on the door and he's like, Are you good? And she's like, yeah. So she scoops up some foam to cover her bits. And he walks in and stops.
He's like, you are not clothed.
And he's half clothed himself. And then she's like, "Do you want to help me with my bath?" Or something like that.
Yep. I don't even know how they get from like talking to
Like he comes over and sits near her, and then he's bathing her.
Yeah, basically.
And then doing
yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
They go like 90% of the way.
Yeah. Okay, so all humor giggling aside, I did appreciate the fact that, and it happened in this book and it happens in like all of Allie Hazelwood's books, there is always a priority on the woman's pleasure. Like, I appreciate that because like in the real world, it's not always like that. And like, especially in TV shows too, like it's always like, he obviously is having a fantastic time, but like, is she too? So I just appreciate that like Allie puts almost like an overwhelming emphasis on the fact that like he's not really getting anything out of it except the satisfaction of like satisfying someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to like get through this so fast because I have a point, but it's like, but I just appreciated that. So Allie, thank you.
What you're touching on is like a theme that people have commented on about the romance genre as a whole, is that it's people, not just women, are looking for like what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
So taking whether it's women's pleasure or men's pleasure out of sight, it's it's emphasis on your partner's pleasure.
Yeah.
And putting that above your own, that should be the priority.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, she does that really well here. This is also the scene where we learn that there are anatomical differences.
Yeah. I even think he's like, it's not compatible.
Yeah, because she's like, "We're going to have sex now, right?" And he's like,
we are not.
"No." She's like, he's like, "I'm good. You're obviously good now." And he doesn't kind of explain outright why it won't work.
Yeah. Which at a baseline, if you're like trying to explain to someone that like isn't the same species as you are, like I too would not want to talk about this. Like
It's so extremely uncomfortable to read about. So if you and I have any critique on this book, it's this part, which we can kind of get into when it actually comes up.
Yeah. We're gonna kick that can down the road
a little bit. So Misery's happy. She got some action.
Yep.
And Lo's happy because he got a little bit of action.
But he was so like it was satisfying to read that he was like overly satisfied with like the work he had done.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, cool, nice. Everybody got what they needed.
Yep. There's a little bit of more, I guess this is all just sex. Like it's a lot of like,
it really is.
Yeah,
there's like actual plot movement interspaced with like
not very much.
Yeah.
So there's another, I'm not sure what else develops in the mystery of, because Serena is still missing. Misery is still trying to track her down. She's not making a lot of progress.
Yeah.
But they have another scene.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the order of these things because I think before the actual like that scene, they like find out that Serena was interviewing someone for an article who happened to be Anna's dad, her like biological dad. So I'm trying to piece together this fucking plot because I will say like one of my beefs with this book is that like all of the plot happens at the end, and it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, they do explain shortly after. So after she's poisoned and he recovers and everything, Lo explains that Anna is his half-sister, and she's his half-sister because her mom, or his mom, their mom, had an affair, kind of, like a relationship with a human. And Anna is the product of that relationship. So it has never been heard of any kind of half human, half were, any kind of interspecies commingling before. And so Anna's like this miracle child and no one knows about it, but they suspect that Serena figured it out. And so she was a journalist and she was going to make this big break of a story about Anna.
Because Anna's dad had been like offed.
Yeah,
there was
murdered.
A meeting, and then like 3 days later, he wound up dead in a car accident.
Sure.
Okay.
That happens all the time.
Yeah. And so that's where I think all of the information they have at this point. And so Misery wants to talk to Owen because Owen has been helping her with this. He's been like weirdly cool about it. He's like, you're my fucking twin, like whatever, bitch, like here. So they schedule a meetup with Owen. They drive into the vampire territory in some like random field. Gabby's there, the mate with Owen. They have a conversation. They're like, someone had edited the like footage outside of Serena's apartment, but they had like ransacked the whole thing. You might want to go look at it, trying to figure out like who did it, but someone tech savvy changed the footage or whatever. But then also Misery is watching, you know, this like conversation between Gabby and Lo. And she's like,
oh, I forgot we get to meet Gabby.
Yeah.
Oh.
And she's like, they seem like they're acquaintances at best.
Not mates.
And it's funny because she's like, oh yeah, like it's kind of fine, like Vampire Land, everybody leaves me alone. I have some like peace and quiet. Like I'm working on my master's. And he's like, oh yeah, like what is your master's in again? And she's like, it's in something, criminal justice, et cetera, et cetera. And Misery is like, everything I know about Lo would suggest that if he was mated to someone and he felt in his soul of souls connected to another person, he would maybe remember what they had majored in college, and then her brain starts percolating. And so when they get to Serena's apartment to like investigate or whatever, she's like, hey Lo, do you remember what my like degree is in? And he's like, oh, it's a concentration in technical blah 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 with a minor in blah blah blah, and you went to this university and you graduated in this year. And she's like, that's a little bit suspicious.
Yeah. Well, I really like that this aspect of Misery's personality stays true throughout from start to finish, which is that analytical part of her brain where she doesn't let her like insecurities override her ability to think through a situation.
Absolutely.
Like I love seeing that because Misery she doesn't jump to conclusions. She makes very reasonable assumptions based on the world around her.
Yep. Because she immediately is like, so who's your mate? And it's like, whoa, I've never had a female character just like come out and say shit that she was actually thinking.
Yeah.
Like, thank you, Misery. Like, I have questions too. Like, who is your mate?
But there's no passive aggression. Passive aggression behind it. She's just
she wants to know.
She's just clinical. She's like, well, I have analyzed the situation. All of these pieces lead me to believe X, Y, and Z. But she still doesn't. She doesn't have a clue about the relationship between her and Lo. She knows there's this sexual tension and they have great chemistry, but she's like, okay, well, I know Gabby is not your mate. So it's not going on. And then I highlighted this section in here where she's kind of reflecting on her relationship with Lo and the fact that, well, they can't be mates. And she likes this concept of mates, but it's impossible because she's a vampire and he's a werewolf. And she thinks to herself, and I've had so little throughout my life, I know better than to demand all or nothing. I'm good at making do. And that is so like heartbreaking, but like you understand where she's coming from as a character. Like she's been abandoned her entire life. She's never had any like very fruitful or long-lasting relationships, especially romantic ones. Just Serena.
Yep.
And kind of her brother, but not really. So she's like looking at Lo, like this is her first like romantic relationship. She's like, well, if it's just the sex, I guess I'll just take that and that's okay. And like, there's no, what's the word? She's not bitter about it.
Yeah.
She's just like, this is the reality of the situation, which is rough to read, but like, that's the character. Like that's how she processes things. Yeah.
And then we get a sex scene.
Yeah. Oh my God. So I feel like a Muppet. I can't even make words.
Yeah, cannot.
Yeah, they almost have sex, except they vividly confront why Misery makes the discovery of why it physically cannot work between her and Lo, and that is because Lo has,
a knot.
Oh, it feels gross just saying it.
Okay, so I want to caveat that, like, I know that this is a category, subgenre of paranormal romance. If it is your thing, it's your thing. Girl, enjoy what you're going to enjoy. It is not our thing.
No.
And I kind of feel like Allie Hazelwood was very brave for putting this in. Like, if it was her thing, she did it. She owned it. Good for her. Not my thing. I'm just going to, like, bypass that little bit. But it was a little bit, like, staggering. You're like, what?
So this is kind of for me, when we get into spice level, it's the level of detail.
Yes.
And this is the level of detail that is too much for me.
Yeah.
Like,
that's fair.
I don't, Fade to Black is not quite enough usually, but this is too much.
That's fair.
Even if there was no
This thing.
Even if there was no stoppage point.
A plug, one might say.
Oh my God. Even if it was like anatomically like normal. I don't want to know about it. And so
That's fair.
To critique this, you can have this. That's fine. I don't think it has to be done so vividly.
That's fair.
And this is kind of where I get into the argument that I think some books should have like an actual rating.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they can't do it because of that thing. And if you read it, you know exactly the thing we're talking about. Do we need to go into it anymore?
Nope.
We did it. We did it. Yeah.
But then we get a weird third act breakup, basically.
Okay, this happens in every fucking rom-com, relationship,
yep.
melodrama.
Yeah.
Very predictable.
Yeah. And it's confusing and like out of place and like out of character and like really weird because it's basically, the end of whatever time. And I'm even kind of confused, like, what really happens, but he's like...
Doesn't she ask him? She's
like,
am I your mate?
And he says no.
He says...
like, punch in the face, no.
He says, you have been abandoned and mistreated your entire life by your family, by your people, by your only friend. You are fascinated with the idea of eternal love and companionship, but that just doesn't reflect what I feel for you. Oh my God. So one, beautifully put, like if you're going to have a massive heart-wrenching breakup scene, yes, that's how you write it.
Yeah.
However, like you said, this is completely out of character for both Lo and Misery.
Yeah.
It doesn't track for the way their relationship is developed, and it doesn't make sense in the plot.
Nope. And it's interesting too, because Misery even has a moment where she's like, I don't remember what she says, but she has like an out-of-body moment of like, he threw this back in my face, like this very like traumatizing, intimate like reveal that I gave to him about my like childhood, and he threw it back in my face. Like that doesn't, like what the fuck is happening? But then she kind of succumbs to the like self-conscious
insecurities.
Which, I mean, if someone said that to me, like I would maybe also have a little bit of a little like mentee bee. But also.
Yeah, it just, yeah.
And I read some of the reviews for this book, and that was other people's beef too. And a lot of people said that you could have had this book continue without that happening. And like, I 100% agree, because it really wasn't relevant to the plot. It wasn't even really relevant to the romance, because I mean, like, it was a sex scene, but it wasn't like the sex scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I understand, because when you have like the physical development of the relationship happen at 60 to 70%,
yeah,
you need something questionable for the relationship for the reader to stay intrigued to the end. So you need some other form of doubt or uncertainty. I get that, but maybe just not have Misery confront the whole mate thing.
Yeah.
Like, confront the mate thing at the very end. That is your last lingering thing.
And it could have been that they used the anatomical difference is the like not the breakup thing, but the thing that causes discord, where like he doesn't trust her enough or some kind of, uncomfortable. They're not really like being upfront about whatever is happening. Like that could have been the mechanism instead of this like weird, you're not my mate, I'm an asshole. And it's like, that doesn't track.
Not a low move. And also, like, Serena's still gone.
Yep.
Like, what about your sister best friend? Like, you're just... She kind of puts that on the back burner a little bit. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Misery's processing that, and then she gets stabbed with a needle.
Yep. Mick comes to pick her up, because Lo obviously has to skedoodle after that little kerfuffle. And Mick comes to pick her up, and then he's like, hey, Misery. And she's like, why are you acting weird? And then she is poked by a needle, and he's like, I am so fucking sorry about this. And then she wakes up to a woman above her, and it is Serena.
And they're in an attic.
Locked into an attic.
Serena, as a character, you just get a little tiny glimpse of her. And Misery describes her as like a dorky badass.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I feel that.
Yeah. I'm like, that's Katie.
Yeah. Because Serena is kind of like one of those people that you would endearingly call batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And like, yeah. Like, that was a weird, like, mirror moment. Like, oh no.
Well, she's a financial analyst, journalist, but she's
also just weird.
Weird.
Super weird.
Yeah, so they're in an attic together, and Serena's like, well, I've been here for like 3 months since I went missing.
Yep.
There's werewolves outside. They're the guards. They're all named Bob.
And then she's like, oh, I feel kind of bad because one of them gave me an extra serving of like vanilla ice cream or vanilla pudding or something. And Misery's like, are you a fucking geriatric patient? Like,
you really get to see a glimpse of the dynamic between Misery and Serena. It is so cute.
It's so fun. Like, I would honestly read like a short story of just them doing some kind of bullshit. Like,
and then like out of nowhere, Serena's like, I got a plan. And she's like, you're going to thrall the guard. It's like, I'm not good at this.
Yep.
But they like kind of thrall the guard.
It like vaguely works.
Yeah. They haul him inside and then they escape the attic.
Yep.
And then they realize that they are not in were territory. They're in the nest.
Yeah.
The vampire nest. But they were guarded by werewolves.
Yeah. That was one of those moments that I was like, I for sure missed something. Like, what the fuck is happening?
This felt a little slipshod thrown together.
Yeah.
But they're like making their way through the nest and they're captured because
obviously
they're in a skyscraper.
Yeah. And then we see Daddy Donald Sutherland.
Yeah. They get taken to his office.
And then we have this weird kind of like
evil villain monologue is what we get.
But it's like 3 pages. Like, it's so convoluted that like
the entire plot gets wrapped up. The entire Serena mystery, the Anna mystery.
Yep. Basically the summation of it is Daddy Sutherland was
I love how he's named Daddy Sutherland.
He was intimidated that the new governor didn't want to have a relationship with the vampires and was pursuing a were-human thing because the only way the vampires have been staying alive is that he's been enthralling, bamboozling the other governor for like the last however many years, and that's how they've been like, you know, things have been going okay, and he's like, I can't let this happen, not under my watch. And then he found out that Serena is also half were, half human. And he's like, if this came out, they would for sure know that like humans and wares aren't that different and vampires would like go extinct.
I did not see that coming.
I didn't either. They should have like had a little bit more sprinkled through of like weird stuff. And Serena even says, she's like, I didn't tell you about this because like I was fumbling with it, which like fair because it almost had some like illusion connection foil to like coming into like your sexuality if you're like lesbian or gay or bi.
Oh,
like it was
and
a little bit of that where it's like I needed to figure it out myself. Like I was going through a lot of stuff, which like fair, but also like you're subspecies mix hybrid, like that feels a little different.
And this is a very dangerous world. Like we need someone else to know.
So,
but the kicker thing here is that her Daddy Sutherland knew Serena was a half-were child.
Yeah.
And he arranged her as a child to be brought to Misery to keep them together, to keep an eye on them both.
Yeah. And then, we kind of forgot. So when Misery Lowe met with Owen and Gabby in that random field or whatever, and they like explained whatever. Owen revealed that he was going to overthrow Daddy Sutherland. He's like, I'm sick of this shit. Like, Misery, you're my fucking twin sister. And he just let you go into human infested lands. You've been almost assassinated like 8 times. Like, I am done with this shit. I'm gonna fucking overthrow him. I have this plan. Don't worry about it. And she's like, you're gonna do what? And he's like, I told you don't fucking worry about it. But then he's the one that had dragged in Lowe as they're having this like, discussion. He's in handcuffs for some reason.
Yeah, because that's gonna work on a werewolf.
Yeah, and Daddy Sutherland is like, you did good, son. And Owen is like, ha, ha, ha. I was secretly evil the whole time. And you're like, I don't really understand what's happening right now.
That's what Misery says, like, Owen, I thought you were on my side, but I guess not anymore. Yeah. And then like she has like a secret language with Serena that they use in the moment to communicate with each other, which did not track at all. No. Like that was like one more thing that was too much.
And it was basically Serena saying that she can on command switch into her wolf form, and then Misery like signals to Lo somehow, like, you know, that thing that Anna can't do? Well, if she waits a little while, she'll be able to do it. And he's like, I understand. And then he has like a head nod with Serena, and they turn into wolves, and then they eat everyone.
They do, like, blood then, like, everywhere.
Owen like unleashes the handcuffs that Lo's in because he's actually not a baddie, and like everybody dies.
It was so much. Yeah. So Vania dies. Yeah. All the guards, like the two wolves just go to Chowtown. And then like it concludes to everyone standing in the room, and Daddy Sutherland is in a chair with headphones and a blindfold on, and they're discussing what to do with him. And Owen's like, well, I guess I'm gonna succeed him, except Misery, unless you want to, like, you can, but I've been doing all this work. And Misery's like, nah man, I'm good, thanks.
And Owen, she even said, she's like, wouldn't you hate me? And he's like, yeah, a little bit, but I mean, like, eh. It's like, buddy.
He's so weird.
I know, but in like a very like endearing way.
Yeah.
And I like his whole character arc because Allie Hazelwood could have done like the norm and have him like betray her. And it's like she has no family that like loves her. But she like literally was like, no, like twins are the same organism almost, like that wouldn't happen. And Owen is even like, you're my fucking twin sister, like this dude is a psycho fucking maniac, and I'm a little crazy too, but like I'm not that kind of crazy. And that's it.
That's it. So they close up, everyone has a plan, the Wares go back to their territory, like she sees Lo, they still have like this weird dynamic because he rejected her very harshly, and she's like, oh, I'm still married to you.
Yeah. And she's also like, I don't know where I live now, like I guess I could go back to my apartment, but that feels not right.
Yeah. So she takes Serena, drops her off at like a warehouse. The warehouse.
Huh? Okay. I was wondering, like, was that intentional? And it was.
It wasn't at this time.
That's fair. Because, like, she immediately, like, turns into wolf form with, like, Juno, and they go, like, galloping through the forest.
Have, like, a fantasy run is what happens. And then Misery goes to her, like, Lo's house, and she walks into her bedroom to find all her shit in boxes.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, so this is what we're doing now. You're just going to kick me out? All right, fuck you.
She basically is like, yeah. She's like, that's rude. But I love the fact that like Lo walks in and he's like, oh, Misery, like you're here. And she's like, so all my shit's in boxes, like I'm leaving. And he's like staring at her and he's like, no, we're just getting the windows treated with like a special whatever thing.
We forgot about one of the main things in the like big battle final thing.
I'm not surprised.
So Daddy Sutherland grabs a knife and puts it to Misery's throat while Lo is still handcuffed.
Yeah.
And he's like threatening Misery, talking to Lo, saying, all right, I know she's your mate. If you don't tell me where Anna is, I'm going to kill her. Because who do you think poisoned her peanut butter?
Oh, that kind of hurt.
Yeah. And so Misery's like, oh, my father poisoned me. Fan-fucking-tastic.
Awesome.
And then she's like, Dad,
cool.
Yeah, Dad, you fucking idiot. I'm clearly not his mate. And then Lo is just standing there not saying anything. And Misery's like, what? What happened here?
Right?
Like, I'm not your mate, right? Like, we had a whole fight about this. And now he's not saying shit. And Misery's like, this dumb motherfucker.
This is a little sus to me.
Yeah. And that's what, you know, they turn into wolves and then bloodbath ensues.
Yeah.
So, like, it's out in the open that Misery is Lo's mate now. But, like, all her shit is in boxes, and he's like, all right, well, I love you and you're my mate, so you're gonna stay here, right? And she's like, excuse the fuck out of me? Like, what are we doing here? And then this book is so immensely quotable.
It really is.
Yeah.
It has some good ones.
But she tells him, like, I love you. I want to stay here. And then his reaction is like, shocked, surprised, like, you really do love me. And then I love Misery so much for this line. No, you don't get to be surprised about what I feel for you. Not when I've been nothing but honest about it.
Oof.
And I'm like, girl, my girl.
That's why I appreciate Misery, because she has her, like, there's a couple moments of, you know, self-conscious doubt or whatever, but it felt out of character. Like, 98% of the time, like, she's upfront and, like,
She
says what she feels and what she understands to be the truth, and it is so refreshing.
Yeah. There's no, like, lying. Like, the only thing she
Yeah.
really lies about is, like, her purpose for, like, getting married, and that's because she suspects everyone, so
Yeah.
she's, like, in fear for her life.
And as soon as she realizes she shouldn't be, she, like, tells
Puts all
him
the
about
cards
it.
on the table. Yeah, so she's honest, she confronts people, she takes these problems head on. Like, this is the kind of, like, good example heroine that we
100%.
want to see.
Yeah. And she's the most traumatized one.
Yeah.
Like, wait a second.
Yeah. We get another
Sex
scene
scenes,
at the very end.
to completion.
Yeah. And I don't think it works like that. I'll just be honest. No.
No, that is not how biology works, but sure. Okay.
Yeah. So that's well, okay, so that's kind of it. The epilogue is pretty good too.
It's cute. It is.
So Cohen comes back with Anna,
Mhm.
and he like walks into the door, big baddies, like
He's like, "Hey, what's up, motherfuckers?"
and then like he stops,
And
freezes.
he's like, "What the fuck?"
He's like, "What is that fucking smell?" And he's like looking over. It's like flashbacks to the start of the book, and then everyone turns and sees Serena playing with Anna in the living room, and Cohen's like, "Oh, fuck me." And Lois
like, "Yeah, buddy,
good
I've
luck
been
with that
there."
one. And now we know what happens in book 2.
Yep, basically. Because that is kind of like the nice thing about knowing Allie Hazelwood's like methods, her whatever she does. Like 100%, we're gonna get another book with them, and I'm obviously gonna read it, even though I feel uncomfortable about certain biology things. This one's gonna be even more weird because they're both like werewolves. But I'm going to enjoy it probably up to that point, not enjoy that bit, and then enjoy everything else.
I suspect that the third book is going to be Owen and Gabby.
Interesting.
Put my money on that.
I could see that. I don't have any guesses. I don't know who the third book would be about. Like, I could see that, but I could also, I don't know.
It's interesting. So, I mean, that's...
Yeah. So we told people to put it in their pocket, and then we never talked about it. And it is such a wah in her when she's, I'm sorry, this is not English.
I have no idea where you're going.
At the very beginning of the book, when she goes through his room and she's like looking around.
Oh,
yeah,
my
we'll end on this because it just like gives you so many like when she's looking around his room, she's
touching everything,
basically being super snoopy. She doesn't think about the fact that he has hyper aware smell. And so later in the book, I think it's during one of their little sexy moments or something, like the not sexy, but like, why is this weirdly sensual?
Yeah.
He says basically like, why were you in my room? And she's like, oh no, like you could probably smell everything. And he's like, your smell was everywhere. And then his voice breaks and he has this like traumatic, like, why did it smell like you slept in my bed? And you can feel his like just angst about being surrounded by her smell. And especially when you find other mates and you think back on it, like that would be traumatizing. Like,
doesn't he say that he didn't like wash his sheets for like weeks?
Yeah, 100%. And he like cut off a piece of something and stuck it in his pocket. Like, man had it bad. But it was like this moment of like he's trying to be cool and suave, and then he's like, no, it smelled like you were like in my bed. Like, and then he like talks about like whatever naughty things he did while he was by himself.
Naughty things.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Because you said naughty things.
He was doing naughty things in his bed. What? What is happening?
It's fine. It's not like there's a knot somewhere else in the book. I'm fine.
Okay, we did it. This is Bride, Allie Hazelwood.
Well, from our shelf to yours.
We'll see you on the next page. Hi, readers. If you'd like to help us pick our next book, send us a message on Instagram.
Or if you'd like to just listen, we post new episodes every Monday and Wednesday on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Thanks for listening.
Bussin'.